What's going on, guys? I want to quickly do something new and give you guys all of the tips right up front, and then you'll see in the play bar if you want to select and learn more about them rather than you having to sit through an entire video. So the first tip I want to give you for shooting the best photos possible with the least amount of gear is you want to find where the available light is. That means the light that is available to you. Right now I have a skylight. I'm lighting myself with this light. This wouldn't be available, but the skylight is available because it's free. The next point is determining where the light comes from. The best way to do that is hold a fist out in front of you and find where the shadows are and where the brightest sides are. That's why you'll see a lot of cinematographers walking around with their fist. They're not angry, they are just finding where the best light is. Then you want to determine if you want to front light or backlight it. Backlighting is more dramatic. Front lighting is often better for an Instagram feed because it's brighter, it's more even. People seem to like Instagram grids and feeds that have a more uniform look. Sometimes doing everything front light can help this. I personally prefer backlighting, so it's a personal choice. Lastly, clear the frame. Clean it up. Then my fifth point is start adding stuff to that frame, start dirtying it up. But it's always easier to start with a blank palette and then start adding to it rather than starting with it too cluttered and pulling everything apart. So there's all the tips, but let's go into more depth on them. So I'm genuinely excited about this tutorial because this is real practical stuff that I use every day. So the most important thing for me is when I'm not using lights is finding the best available light. And I actually prefer to shoot photography mostly with available light unless I'm trying to do something dramatic like when I did this photo shoot when I first got the iPhone. But in this case, I was shooting both this Pentax camera, this guy right here, and these photos over at my friend's donut shop, Kops. And if you're in Toronto, these are the best donuts by far. They destroy Tim Hortons, they destroy Tiny Toms. They are delicious. So the first thing that I do when I get to set is I try to find the best available light. And this is usually a big window. So if you see at Kops here, I'm taking these photos, they have this giant, beautiful light. And what's great is the sun is never directly coming in there. Usually it's bouncing off the walls in the alleyway, which is good because it's gonna give you softer light. So try and find the biggest soft light source. And soft usually means indirect light, that it's bouncing in. You're getting ambient light spill. So when we went over to the other location here for Kops, this is when we used the doorway here in the front lobby as our main lighting source. When I shot here in the office with this photo of the Pentax here, I used the big windows at the back of our office, which are these double pane screen windows. That's again a big, soft, available source. And the best way to know how that light is going to react with your subject without setting everything up is learning how to use the cinematographer's fist. It is not because you're angry and you're running around shouting at people. It's because it has a lot of shape. You can see texture on this. So right now you can see this is flat because it's being lit here all by the front. But you can see these videos here as I move around the office just by changing the perspective of my camera lens and moving my hand around the office, the lighting completely changes. So this is one of the best ways to quickly determine where your shadows are going to be and where your highlights are going to be. And we can still determine when we're outside, even though it's way more brighter, where the backlighting is coming from. I'll show you again. I'm going to do the fist test. You see there is some shadow right here, whereas if I come around, it's completely flat. So I'm going to want some shape. So I'm thinking probably in here. Now the last thing I do is I determine if I want to shoot front lit or backlit. Front lighting being like this right now, all the light is coming from the front. Backlighting being if you're shooting towards the light. It's two different vibes. Backlighting is more dramatic, front lighting is more flat, but sometimes can be more complementary towards things. This is why when I was shooting these photos for Kops here, here's the front lit, it's very bright, maybe it's a bit too bright, we'll just bring it down just a bit. But when you jump back around here for the backlighting, there's a bit more texture, a bit more interesting of a shot in my opinion. But again, it's personal preference. Now here is my next step, and what I always do is I clear the space. So for example, in my office, I cleared everything on our counter so I had the most simple surface to work with so I could focus on the lighting on my subject, in this case, this camera, and then I could go from there by adding more in. And I'm just gonna run into Lightroom here, and I'm actually gonna add one of my own LUTs here, Product Punch, I think. Yeah, because the Hikon, we lose all the information I'm just gonna add product punch. That actually looks not so bad. What would I do? Maybe up a bit of the shadows here, but it's pretty nice. I mean, this is a bit dirty here, but in my opinion, that's kind of what is on the camera anyways. It's an older vintage camera. So I kind of like that has some texture. But looking at this photo, it's pretty plain, it's pretty simple. It might work for an Instagram feed, but I kind of want to add some more in. And what I quickly found when I was taking these photos is the background here was this big black blob. This was the top of my stove. It just didn't look so nice. So what I actually did is I went and got a piece of paper and I threw it over top there. So I just literally threw this paper here, which was for all of our posters from our new film. If you think I should start selling these, leave a comment below. And now if I come back to Product Punch, I might even want to Photoshop this out, this black beam, but it at least got the background a little more uniform with the foreground. But as I said, this is kind of a boring photo. We want to spice it up a bit. So this is when we start adding in some texture. This is where foreground elements can really start helping. Also too, I was noticing when I was taking these photos that I needed a little more return, a little more light coming onto the camera. Again, I want to keep it quick and simple. I don't want to have to set up lights. So I literally grabbed another piece of paper. I grabbed actually 2 boxes with 2 lights that I should be using to light, but I just put the piece of paper up there and it began reflecting a bit of light back onto the camera, giving me some fill, but still not taking away all of that strong backlighting that I liked. Now jumping over here, I started adding some foreground. That's where adding in some leaves in this case, or I have a bit of the paper there. I don't really like that. I messed around with some other angles here. This is starting to feel a bit flat for me, so that's why I start coming back down here into this perspective. Now remember this, the more top down you shoot, the higher your camera goes. Usually the more depth you are losing, but the cleaner the shot will be. If you see I'm up high here, we have a cleaner background around the camera. Now I do have some foreground elements, but the second I come back down further, we're starting to get the background back in. And what I ended up doing is I grabbed some other lenses here. I added a camera in the background. We'll add my LUT back in. The camera I found was getting too stacked here, so I actually just pushed the camera back there so that we have 3 stages of depth. We're getting a nice highlight off the lens here. Maybe if I took some more time, I might have added some more light to this lens right here, just so it wasn't so much of a black blob. But then that's where I came up on the camera here, so I got some of the reflection on the glass. Now we're having different stages of depth. We're actually getting a bit of interesting drama and story to this photo, rather than it just looking like this. We've now added a bunch more things here. And, I kind of don't mind that photo. I would post that. And by the way, if you're interested in any of the LUTs that I'm using, I've just released a photo pack. I also have my video LUTs, putting them on sale for the next 72 hours on this video. So they're gonna be 50% off to celebrate me finally launching photo LUTs that people have been asking for a while, and now I am. So what about these tips when you go outside? I've been talking about indoors using indoor lighting. Well, they kind of apply the same way outside, because if you're outside, there is more ambient light typically, as in light everywhere, but there is directional light, which is the sun. So when I went out to shoot the camera here on the back deck, I did the same test. I held my hand out front of me in a fist and found where the lighting was coming from, which is where the sun is coming from. But still, in certain environments, light can bounce around and you want to find where the shadows are and where your key source is coming from. So I started simple, just real clean background, shot on a simple texture. But then I started adding. So I went inside, I brought that beautiful little plant out again, and I started shooting through the window. Now the window's adding a bit of a haze. It's kind of actually a cool look. I would consider opening this up a bit using my Product Punch LUT over here and add a bit more contrast. Yeah, let's see this now. That's starting to look kind of cool. I don't love all the black up here, so if I were to post this photo, I might consider just cropping it in a bit here. Yeah, that's kind of a cool photo. Yeah, so then I just, again, started trying different angles, clearing the frame and then adding texture. Now, where I had a lot more in this last photo, a lot of tree and everything in the foreground, I punched in a bit tighter here, got rid of it, but I still have a bit of this green coming in. And I just started adding more texture, seeing if I like more of that. Again, here's that principle in play. The higher you shoot up, the less depth you have, but the more uniform the background typically will be. But when I come down lower here, I have a much more textured background. It's quite interesting. I do like both shots, but they're 2 different looks. This to me would look nicer on its own on a website, but this photo I imagine would work better on an Instagram feed. Being that Instagram feeds always seem to look a bit better when they're cleaner. In the background, I shot down the steps, just trying to add a little more texture. Come back around here. I'm gonna add my product punch shot. This product punch really works. Why the product punch, why I like using this one that I created is it has a bit higher clarity, well, a lot higher clarity, but you can kind of do that with products. When you start adding that to people's faces, it looks weird, it kind of gives them this look like they haven't washed their face for a while. But on products, you can push that a lot further. Just gonna up these shadows just a bit here. And then my final shots here, I went and I tried something very clean again. Just gonna bring that down. This is something that could work again on an Instagram feed that's really clean and simple. There you go, guys. That's my simple photography approach. You gotta just find a viable light, find out where the light's coming from using your hand, your fist, or even just putting your subject in frame. And then from there, I start clean and I start adding textures in. So clearing out the space, being ready to move some stuff around will help you get the best photos possible. But thank you guys for watching. I think this is actually my first photography tutorial. Wow, what an exciting moment. And if you're at the end here, you're one of the 10%ers. You're my people. I love you. Thank you for watching this. And I'll see you guys on the next one.